The top business stories live from the Sky News City studio. Kazakhstan's Air Astana reports flying a record number of passengers in its first results since its London flotation. I'll be speaking to the CEO. McDonald suffers a huge IT outage affecting restaurants from the UK to Australia. Plus, the chief executive of the Jockey Club on 100 years of the Cheltenham Gold Cup.
It's the place that everyone wants to come. It's the place that all the trainers, the owners, jockeys really want to win. And it's been, the normal fantastic Cheltenham week that everyone's really enjoyed.
Good morning, this is Business Live with me, Ian King. While last year saw a dearth of flotations on the London Stock Exchange, this year's already seen a major one in the form of Air Astana, the national flag carrier of Kazakhstan. Today, the airline, the biggest in Central Asia and the Caucasus, reported record passenger numbers of 8.1 million for 2023, up 10% on 2022. But pre-tax profits fell by 14% to $87.1 million, due partly to the 2022 results being flattered by thousands of Russians leaving the country via Kazakhstan following Moscow's attack on Ukraine. Well, Peter Foster is the chief executive of Air Astana, and he joins me now from the Kazakh capital, Almaty. Peter, very good morning to you. Where are you seeing demand growing most strongly just now?
I think we're seeing growth across all markets. 2023 was a very good year for us. We carried a record number of passengers, 8.1 million. We carry that across our two brands. We have a low-cost airline, Fly Air Astana. We have a full-service airline, Air Astana. The former has been in business since 2002. As you know, it was a joint venture with BAE Systems and the Sovereign Wealth Fund here in Kazakhstan. The latter started about 4 years ago. We're seeing broad growth across all markets. We're very happy with the performance. We're extremely happy to have listed the company on the three exchanges, including London, just a month ago.
How important was the IPO for you, Peter?
I think it's very important. I mean, the company was founded back in 2002, and it was founded with just $17 million of capital at that time by the two shareholders. And we'd never had any form of capital injection or market event since that time. We were one of the few airlines not to take any money from governments or shareholders during COVID. So it was important, of course, to increase the capital base. We're an expanding airline. It's useful to have those funds as we power that expansion in a growing part of the world. So it was absolutely crucial, and we're delighted to have done it, as I say, on those three exchanges, two of them here and in London.
Yes, and what made you opt for London?
Look, the key thing, as far as we were concerned, was to have a base of high-class shareholders. London gave us the access to an extremely, experienced investor base. It also affords us to get into the liquidity of the London market. And at the same time, of course, that comes with all of the corporate governance framework that London affords. So those are really the three key reasons for London. And we're happy that this happened. And, thus far, that decision has been vindicated.
Now, you mentioned expansion plans just now. You grew the fleet from 43 to 49 aircraft last year. What's on the plan for this year?
So we're now up to 50. We've just sort of crossed that threshold of 50 aircraft a couple of weeks ago. We've got 7 more aircraft planned for this year. By the end of next year, we expect to be up. By the end of 2026, we expect to be up to 66 aircraft. And by the end of 2028, 80 aircraft. So we are, the fastest growing airline group in this region. This region is not just Kazakhstan, it's the whole of Central Asia and the Caucasus. And we are the fastest growing airline group in the region.
Peter, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today, but it's lovely talking to you today. Hope to see you again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Some other business news stories for you now. And Vodafone has sold its Italian business to Swisscom, Switzerland's biggest telecoms company, for €8 billion. When Vodafone Italia is merged with Swisscom's existing operations in the country, it will be Italy's second largest fixed line and broadband operator after Telecom Italia. Well, the deal follows Vodafone's recent sale of its Spanish operations. News of plans to merge its UK arm with those of Three. Vodafone entered Italy in 2001 via its blockbuster takeover of the German telecoms company Mannesmann and renamed the latter's Italian business to Vodafone Italia. The following year, Vodafone will return half of the sale proceeds to shareholders via share buybacks. The Competition and Markets Authority said this morning it's launched an inquiry into the proposed takeover of house builder Redrow by its larger rival Barratt Developments. The regulator said it was inviting interested parties to submit views on the impact that the £2.52 billion transaction announced last month will have on competition in the UK. Shares of Barratt and Redrow have fallen slightly on the news. Elsewhere, Barclay Group said today that inquiry levels from November to February have been good, with pricing stable across its sites and above business plan levels. One of the UK's most widely held investment trusts said today it will buy back up to £1 billion worth of its shares over the next 2 years. Scottish Mortgage Investment Trust, one of the earliest investors in Tesla and a major shareholder in tech giants such as Amazon and Nvidia, said it was doing so as a strong demonstration of confidence in the underlying value of its portfolio. Shares of Scottish Mortgage, which have recently been trading at a 16% discount to their net asset value, are up by 3% just now. Our McDonald stores in the UK, Japan, Australia, New Zealand and Hong Kong have been experiencing massive technical difficulties with customers unable to place their orders. In Japan, the fast food giant has halted operations at most of its 3,000 stores due to a system disruption. Company spokesperson said, "We're aware of a technology outage which impacted our restaurants. The issue has now been resolved in the UK and Ireland. It is not related to a cybersecurity event." Now, when we talk about air quality, most people assume that refers to the air outdoors and how it's affected by pollution. But the quality of the air we breathe indoors is also moving up the agenda of healthcare and environmental regulators worldwide, all of which should be good news for Volution, the FTSE 250 supplier of ventilation products and owner of brands including Ventaxia and Manrose. Today, it reported pre-tax profits of £29 million for the 6 months to the end of January. That was up 28% on the same period last year. Joining me now, very pleased to say, is Ronnie George, the Chief Executive of Volution. Ronnie, good to see you this morning. Your sales were up 6.3%. The fact that your margins were up too suggests to me that most of that came from price rather than volume.
No. Well, there was a little bit of price, but I think that in terms of the margin enhancement, we've run the business really well. A whole raft of initiatives. We have this operational excellence programme, and that manifested very well. We've got an enhancing mix as we sell more low-carbon products. So, no, I think we've just done a really good job. And in the UK, there was a strong margin evolution, 300 basis points of margin improvement in the UK alone.
Looking at house building in the UK, it was pretty subdued last year, yet you've done really well in UK residential. What's behind that?
I was here 6 months ago and we talked about what's happening and, clearly completions are down, but there's a huge decarbonising agenda. And what we're seeing now is a move towards energy-efficient ventilation. Air tightness means ventilation is much more important, and we have technology that provides heat recovery of the energy in the property. These are continuous ventilation solutions, and they're at a higher unit value, but there's still great value in terms of the proposition. So we were able to offset volume declines with technology, but also some share gains. So we believe our technology is market leading. We've got evidential sort of proof of share gains and new accounts. So we had a strong performance in residential new build despite the lower completions.
Do regulations vary much between new build flats and new build houses?
In residential flats, in apartments, then I would say regulations are much more advanced. There's lots of sort of technical reasons as to why that would be the case around the build profile. But we're seeing this move from traditional ventilation to continuous in houses. And that's where we saw the sort of strongest growth. We call it decentralised mechanical extract ventilation, but it runs continuously. It's very energy efficient, and there is a premium to the more traditional solution.
Now, as we've been reporting, the CMA is looking into the merger of Barratt and Redrow. I mean, that's a major supplier to the house builders. Do you have concerns about sector consolidation?
No, not really. Not in that regard. Those are very credible house builders, important accounts for us, companies that we deal with. But look, there's a new regulation, or the Future Home Standard is being worked on at the moment, and I think we talked about it previously. If you have a low carbon home, it probably costs up to a couple of £1,000 a year less to run than an older, more leaky, less energy efficient dwelling. So, look, from my perspective, I'd love to see more houses built in the UK. I know it's been a difficult time. We've got a structural shortage. But, you know, we're supportive of what the house builders are doing in terms of this regulatory change.
What about the picture elsewhere? I mean, you're big in continental Europe and in Australia there. What's the picture like there?
Yeah, continental Europe's been more difficult. We've cited Germany as being very weak. The new build construction in Germany was very weak. Nordics was challenging but started to come back. But look, in the Netherlands, we have a brand called Klimarad. It provides retrofit heat recovery ventilation in housing associations. That grew strongly. But it's interesting because if we look at the group diversity, a couple of years ago I talked about UK weakness and continental European strength. Now we're talking about the reverse. And indeed in Australasia, you know, in Australia we made fantastic progress in the year with our Ventair brand. So overall, that diversity is very helpful for the group.
Last time you were on, we talked about inflation as well. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation. I mean, my sense is that material inflation has peaked and coming down the other side. I think there's still sort of labour inflation catch up, although maybe we're seeing that ebb away a little bit. But look, I think the direction of travel on inflation is definitely downwards. The only debate is timing, but it's definitely coming down now.
Now, you've been pretty acquisitive over the last 12 months, 3 acquisitions last year. Is there more to come on that front? I know your net debt's down despite all that.
Yes, absolutely. Cash generation was really strong. It's an essential ingredient for underpinning our sort of hunger to continue to acquire. We've averaged 2.5 M&A transactions in the 10 years, every year, I should say, in the 10 years since we listed. So 25 deals in 10 years. We've got a sort of pipeline that we're sort of cajoling. The difficulty is timing and actionability. But yeah, we hope to do more deals in the near future.
Good stuff, Ronnie. We've got to leave it there, I'm afraid. Always good to see you. Thanks very much for coming on Results Day. Thank you. Well, last night's declines on Wall Street were followed by a largely downbeat session overnight for stocks in the Asia-Pacific region. Only Shanghai bucked the trend among major markets. Well, here in Europe, though, stocks are heading into the weekend on a largely positive note. There's the current picture. Talking points today include Volution, Germany's largest residential landlord. Its shares down 7% after a write-down in property values pushed it to its biggest ever loss. Well, here in London, the FTSE 100 also going into the weekend on an upbeat note, currently up a fifth of 1%. The leading blue-chip gainer in percentage terms, very interesting move this, International Airlines Group, that's the owner, of course, of British Airways and Aer Lingus, up 5% this morning. That's on news that Moody's has put the company on review for a possible credit upgrade. Meanwhile, Vodafone's up nearly 4% on the sale of Vodafone Italia, and Scottish Mortgage up by some 3.75% on that share buyback news. To the downside, Reckitt Benckiser is off nearly 5% on news it must pay $60 million to the family of a baby which died after being fed its infant formula. The company is appealing. Outside the FTSE 100, with the leading mid-cap gainer, we've just been talking to them. Volution up 6% on its results. Elsewhere in the mid-250, the thermal processing services provider Bodycote is up 5% on its results. On the foreign exchange markets, as you can see, pretty quiet right now, though I should say the pound is heading for its biggest weekly loss against the dollar since December last year. Meanwhile, the oil price, that's been gaining steadily over the last 48 hours. Concerns over a supply deficit growing. The oil price yesterday hit its highest level since the 6th of November, succumbed to a bit of profit taking this morning. A barrel of Brent crude will currently set you back $84.91 a barrel. That's off a little under 2/3%. Well, joining me this morning is Sophie Lund Yates, lead equity analyst at Hargreaves Lansdown. Sophie, good to see you this morning. I guess we should start with Vodafone. It's the big corporate story of the day. I mean, the market seems to quite like this.
Hi, Ian. Good morning. Yes, they do indeed, don't they? So as you've pointed out, Vodafone is selling its Italian business for the value of €8 billion. Now, half of that is coming back to shareholders via a buyback, which I think is something that the market is particularly fond of. But also really what the market is reacting to is the fact that Vodafone is really grasping the nettle and making some really quite bold moves in order to streamline itself and also generate some cash as well, because one of the big problems that it's been facing is a really rather eye-watering debt pile as well as rising costs. So there's a lot of relief this morning that they are going to be feeling a bit more flush, shall we say.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we also heard today from Berkeley Group, the house builder, again, reasonably well-received statement.
Yes, absolutely. This is where I make a pun about solid foundations or something like that. But frankly speaking, that's exactly what they've displayed. Now, one of the things about Barclay that we need to remember is that they are slightly different to the more standard builders in the FTSE. So when we look at the average price point, which they highlighted today, the average Barclay home is around £624,000. So really quite a different price point. And as much as there have been difficulties, it's been a very, very tough market for all the builders. They really are seeing some quite positive green shoots, especially around those inquiry figures, as you were mentioning. So a lot to monitor. We know things remain very uncertain, but actually they're in a pretty robust spot, particularly when you look at the balance sheet.
And further afield, humdinger of a profits warning the other day from HelloFresh. We've heard from them again today.
We have indeed. So yes, that profit warning a few days ago has seen the share price, it was down about 45%. So really quite shocking. And they've had more detailed results out today, which has shown a 6.5% drop in active customer numbers in the final quarter of last year. Now, really what they're struggling with is a perceived or a projected drop in volumes, which is going to really negatively impact margins. Again, we're seeing people tighten their purse strings, and things like meal kits and pre-prepared food are the kind of cost that people are trimming. And the growth trajectory looks pretty uncertain, and that's having a really, really direct impact on the profit expectations. And that's why the market is punishing them quite so much.
OK, now, Sophie, our viewers are very familiar with you, but reading my newspapers today, I saw your dad in the papers. Do you want to tell the viewers about that?
Yes, absolutely. Some people may have seen that my father, Andrew Lund Yates, who is petitioning really for the reversal of some decisions being made by local authorities relating to coaches in our village of Bourton on the Water, which is going to really quite badly impact some of our businesses here, particularly the revenue profile, and also slightly worrying that we're potentially saying goodbye to allowing a certain demographic access to this beautiful part of the world.
Yeah, it is indeed. Why shouldn't people come and visit there? Sophie, great to see us ever. Have a lovely weekend. Thank you.
Thanks.
Just a little update on a story we mentioned earlier on. McDonald's suffering an IT outage. We're now told that all of their restaurants in Australia have reopened. Well, still to come here on Business Live, it's the centenary today of the Cheltenham Gold Cup. I've been speaking to the Chief Executive of the Jockey Club about today's big race. Don't go away.
I'm Dan Whitehead and I'm Sky's West of England correspondent.
I'm Katie Spencer and I'm Sky News' arts and entertainment correspondent. We help you to understand the world with us.
I'm Adam Parsons, I'm Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Brussels. We take you to the heart of stories that shape our world.
I'm Lisa Dowd and I'm one of Sky's Midlands correspondents. The reason I do this job is because you never know where it's going to lead.
Traveling is not just about the destination. It's also about how you get there. Fly Emirates, fly better. Fly Emirates, fly better. Thank you.
Welcome back. Well, today sees the climax of the Cheltenham Festival, the most prestigious steeplechasing event of the year, with the Gold Cup, the blue ribbon event of jump racing. And today's race marks the event's centenary, with the field vying to follow in the footsteps of legends such as Arkle, Dawn Run, Desert Orchid and Captain Christie, which was ridden to victory in 1974 by Bobby Beasley, father of the former producer of this programme, Scott Beasley. I've been speaking to the chief executive of the Jockey Club, that's Nevin Truesdale. The Jockey Club, of course, owns Cheltenham and it's the UK's biggest commercial horse racing organisation.
This is the pinnacle of the jump racing sport. It's the place that everyone wants to come. It's the place that all the trainers, the owners, jockeys really want to win, and it's been the normal fantastic Cheltenham week that everyone's really enjoyed. Some fantastic racing. We've seen Willie Mullins get 6 winners to get to his 100th festival winner. We've seen 2 Grade 1 wins for Rachel Blackmore. We've seen Paisley Park, fantastic legendary staying hurdler, retire yesterday after running in that race again for the final time. And we've some great stories off the track as well. It's been a brilliant week of just celebration and one of Britain's biggest sporting events, so we've really enjoyed it.
I've seen 1 or 2 comments in the press suggesting that ticket sales have been a bit more sluggish this year. What's the picture?
Yes, I think we have to look at it in the bigger picture of this is, there is no jump race event anywhere else in the world that attracts a crowd of close to 250,000. This is still Britain's 3rd most attended sports event. Only Wimbledon and the Grand Prix ahead of it. And put it in that context, the slight drop-off that we have seen in a context of cost of living crisis, definitely we've seen some impact of that. We've done a lot to help people with their payments. We've done staged payment plans for the first time. You could have, if you bought your ticket back in August for Best Mate, you could have been you could have got into what is one of the top sporting events for £37. So we've done a lot to help people through that. We have seen a slight drop off. We've sold more hospitality than we've ever done, which is fantastic. We've seen more people coming to those really premium end offers, which is brilliant. But obviously, we need to be realistic about the fact that some people are struggling, and we're doing everything we can to help them.
And is that consistent with what you've seen at other Jockey Club courses around the country?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing around the country is generally people buying their tickets a little bit later. I think people are having just a little bit less money in their pockets to be able to plan their personal financial circumstances. We're certainly not seeing any big drop-off in attendance or anything like that.
I've seen 1 or 2 comments complaining about the lack of competition at Cheltenham this year. Obviously, it's been a fantastic festival for Willie Mullins. Do you worry about a drop-off in competition?
I think if you look at the race, we look at the race programme every year in terms of how competitive we make it, and it's quite a technical thing to be able to do, and we have experts who will review that after every festival. But I think certainly after this year, we're certainly listening, and we're certainly saying there are certain elements of the programme that we probably do need to review, and indeed we will review.
One of the other things that I've picked up on is Cheltenham is now cashless. There seems to be a bit of unhappiness that if you pick up your winnings from the bookie and it's in cash, you can't go and then spend it and flash it around in front of your mates and buy them a round of drinks. You have to use a card to do so.
Yeah, you do, and to be honest, that's in line with most other big sports, not just sports events, but leisure, hospitality venues. There are very few now that are not cashless, and we're bringing ourselves into line with that. And what it does do is when you do go to the bar and you do buy those pints for your mates after your big win, you're getting served a lot more quickly, and the turnaround times have diminished significantly as a result. So it's pros and cons, but I think the way that society is going is really reflective of what we're doing, and I think it is overall more efficient in terms of the customer experience.
And more broadly, how do you assess the health of the racing industry post-COVID?
COVID was a tough time for the racing industry, and it was for many sports and leisure hospitality industries. And you look at the fact we were then the first sport to come back after COVID, back before even football, but we were then without crowds for a year, and I think that did set the sport, as it set all sports back, quite a long way. coming out of that, we then had a record period. We had a fantastic festival here 2 years ago, numbers-wise, and still a very popular sport and people really wanting to get to those big, iconic events. We can never be complacent. We've always got to be looking, as we said a minute ago, at the race programme, the compelling spectacle, competitiveness of the racing, the offer we've got on site, our digital journeys in terms of how we sell our tickets and how we generate our content online. All of those things are areas where the sport needs to be continuing to improve and evolve, and we're very cognizant of that. We can never, ever rest on our laurels.
Now, today's Gold Cup day, obviously, this is the 100th Gold Cup. Who's your money on it? It's hard to look past Galopin Des Champs, isn't it?
We're obviously very, very proud to be celebrating the 100th anniversary of this absolutely iconic race, the one really they all want to win. It's up there in sporting trophies, I think with Wimbledon, with the FA Cup, with the Ashes, I mean, all of which are sports that I love. But I think, today, we've got some great winners of this trophy down the years. Galopin Des Champs, who won last year, definitely has the potential to be right up there with the Caucasus stars, the best mates of this world, some of the really iconic winners. On this ground, I think he is now odds on. It's hard to see him getting beaten, but that's the unpredictability of this sport. Paul Nicholls had a winner yesterday with Montmoral in the Pertemps final. His horse has been in good form these past few weeks. I would say that definitely, if you're looking for a British win, we haven't had one of those since I think 2018, I think I'm right in saying, you might be looking in that direction. We'll see.
Well, while that interview was playing out, I've been checking the latest odds, and Brave Man's Game, which is the Paul Nicholls trained horse, of course, the British horse to which Nevin Truesdale was referring there, it's drifted out in the betting. It was 14s overnight. It's moved out to 22 to 1 now, so not a lot of hope for the British horses. Galopin Des Champs, last year's winner, of course, still very much the favourite. In terms of the second favourite, Jerry Colombe has come in from 15 to 2 overnight to 7 to 1, but still looks like the favourite is the one to beat. Well, I'll be back at 4:30. The race will have been run by then. Hope very much to see you then. In the meantime, do stay tuned. Coming up next, it's Sam Washington. See you later.